But what particular qualities do you think Forrest, as a goalkeeper and all the experience that you had playing EPL and playing international football, as Jesse Marsch, what are you looking for from your goalkeepers?
Well, you're looking for presence, consistency, comfortable, how comfortable you are on the ball. Certainly that has to be a major factor these days, because it brings up so many different options about playing out of the back, keeping possession in the back, and then also having a goalkeeper with some range with his ball striking, which I think both Max and Dane Sinclair have. Dane looks pretty comfortable for a big lad, long legs. He looks pretty comfortable on the deck. He played, I thought, very well on that from that standpoint. Didn't have an awful lot to do in both games, to be honest. He had a couple of shots, 3 shots maybe against Mexico, a couple against the United States, came up big once. But overall, I thought his performances were fairly solid. I think he would have learned a little bit about it. And as little as you have to do, things can get exposed and under the microscope as far as the second goal against Mexico. If you don't set your wall up, that's as big a mistake as dropping one on the goal line. So things like that have to be sharper, and you don't want to see players make mistakes, and that consistency and like I say, like a presence at the back that people like, and defenders that are comfortable with a goalkeeper as well.
I think it was our James Sharman who mentioned this, like that profile, right? Like his stature, as you say, his presence in goal. I think they were mature performances by Dane Sinclair. Like, I think that he showed maturity. I think there's still experience that can be gleaned that kind of puts him on par with Max in that regard. But I think his physical qualities, and as you said, like for a big man, the way that he can play as a goal player with the ball at his feet and distribute, and, great left peg on him. But is that something, because after you mentioned that wall, for Raul Jimenez's set piece goal that curled around the wall, didn't have to go over it. I was watching, like there was a couple of free kicks that the U.S. got in that third place match. One that Jimmy alluded to, talking about Christian Pulisic, before he came off, or before he waved off the substitution and he stayed on to take the free kick. I was looking at that wall and I wasn't convinced. So I think he's learned from it. Obviously, that's something that the staff is going to talk to him about, and he's learned himself. But I still wasn't convinced in a couple of those walls where the ball was about 25 yards out to the left of goal, looking at Sinclair, or to his right, that he had enough players in it, or that it was far enough over to cover that front post.
I agree with you. I was watching the same thing, and Pulisic was hitting it right-footed, and there was somebody else on the ball, and Pulisic wasn't not going to take it, but I thought the left foot potentially could actually go around the wall again. We'll never know, but it didn't look as though it was overlapped enough, but only Dane knows that. But I would have thought he would have got it right the next time.
Well, that's it. It's just that you forgive the mistakes, because it will be learning that's taken from it. But if you keep making the same mistakes over and over again in these big games, well, that won't be forgiven so easily. But as you said, we'll never know, because it wasn't a left-footed player who stepped up to the ball there.
Getting the basics right is essential. I mean, just think if you're in the World Cup in a year from now and something like that happens, I mean, how devastating that can be for a team. Puts you out of the World Cup for just a simple mistake like that.
Yeah, that is going to be, I think, like we've talked about the upward trajectory and the progression that this team has made since Jesse Marsch has come in. It's been pretty remarkable. I think, even if we're disappointed they didn't achieve their goal of getting a trophy and winning the Nations League, I think they're still in a pretty good spot right now. Even if you do factor in the Alphonso Davies injury, I think that they're still well ahead of where we expected them to be. But if they're going to get out of that group, we know it's a deeper field. They're going to have matches that aren't gimmies in their group, but where they have the potential to win, and to win convincingly. But it's going to be mitigating those errors. And that's going to be the difference maker for all 48 of those teams involved next summer, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And, one of the interesting things, I don't know if anybody's talked about this, but they're going to get a good draw. There's going to be one team in there is going to be pretty good. And then you could get 2 softer teams with 48 World Cup. Now, if they actually win the group and they have complaints or they're playing in Toronto and going to Vancouver. But they play 2 games in Vancouver. If they win the group, the next game they would play would be in Vancouver.
Hmm.
And if they won that game, the next game they play would be in Vancouver again.
Wow.
So that doesn't get much better than that. I mean, that is the carrot that is being dangled. Now, it's a big ask winning the group, but in a 48-team World Cup, the way this team is playing, I think that that's what they're looking to do. If they finish second, all bets are off. I think they go to Kansas City, play an Arrowhead. So everything would change from there. But all the teams are set up in a manner that they would play at home if they win the group, the United States included and Mexico.
Forrest, that's brand new information for me, and I'm very impressed with how many details you know about this World Cup. But it shouldn't surprise me because in our chat before we started recording today, you were talking about visiting the Toronto headquarters or the Canadian headquarters for next summer's World Cup, and you were very impressed. Is that where you got all these details about Canada and then potentially winning or finishing in second place and implications of all that, or do you know that already?
Well, I did actually look at one of the boards for the schedule. And I was like,
There we
hold on
go.
a minute. Hold on. What happens here? This is great. So it is great. It really is. But what an impressive setup they have. And I was asking Peter Montopoli that used to be with the CSA, obviously general secretary for years. I think 2005 he joined, Sandra Gage. And, the players should walk through there, and they haven't yet. And okay, they probably haven't had a lot of time to do that. But if Jesse Marsch saw it, which he hasn't yet, it would be a must do to walk through. It's just so everything that's good about Canada, the signage, the Toronto signage, the Vancouver stuff, what's going on behind the scenes. It just makes it feel incredibly real. And I think if the players went through there, they would feel that it's tangible in there. So beautiful setup, and they're doing a really good job. I think they're having a meeting with 50 of their largest sponsors today. So when people come to Canada, and I think with the political climate too, I think Canada's a good place to come, and you're going to feel the World Cup, and you're going to actually feel it here when it finally comes around. And June 12th, I think Canada's first game is next year.
Gosh, it's coming so quick, right?
Yeah,
We're almost into April. So that's 14 months away.
Mm-hmm. And once you get into that final year, it's just going to see the buildup start to rise all the time. And that's from the actual people involved with FIFA and CONCACAF and Canada soccer. Everybody's been there. I think CPL have been down to that office. NSL, they have a big play there too, helping out that league, and they'll be out in Vancouver for the 16th, I believe, is the opening game.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm hoping to be there as well. So
yes, Forrest, I will also be there. Yeah, Vancouver versus Calgary Wild. Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah. I did not know that.
That's right.
Maybe we should get the whole footy crew.
I know. Let's do it. We're making plans for everybody. But that's a really important point that you make. But mentioning CPL, mentioning NSL, and that is what we need to do in this country, because we've talked about the impact of 2026. It can't just be on its own in isolation. It has to reverberate. It has to pull in everybody, all of the stakeholders of the game, all of the other domestic pro leagues, all the decision makers, all the leaders, but also all the fans of our respective pockets, across this great land of ours. But you were mentioning the offices. So is it pretty expansive, and where is it in Toronto?
It's right down, not far from BMO Field, Lamport Stadium, right across the street from Lamport.
Okay.
Beautiful, like just an old warehouse knocked in. It used to be an old carpet warehouse, and there's a whole bunch of businesses there on different floors, but it's just very open. I don't know how many 1,000 square foot it is. It's just incredible.
That's great. Well, was that the same offices where Victor had done some interviews, and he invited us to come down and do some? We should do a Footy Prime from there.
I don't know if I was part of that, so perhaps.
Yeah, well, we didn't interview him. He came on our show after, but I think he'd conducted some other interviews from those offices, but I might be mistaken. But
no, that would make sense. They have a lot of space there, and we could even do the podcast from there. We've been invited down. So, yeah, never know.
Let's do it. Ride your coattails. Did they roll out an old red carpet for you, since it's an old carpet factory?
Yeah, and obviously, and I'm old, so they're like, well, yeah. No, it was
Maybe a
great.
couple
Met
words.
all the staff there. I think there's about 80 people working there at the moment, and there'll be more coming into the last year. So everybody's there for the right reasons. Like they're there because of the love of sports and love of the game, and this is going to be the biggest sporting event we've ever seen in Canada for numbers.
Yes, absolutely. Because the 2015 Women's World Cup that Canada hosted was a success across the board. But yeah, this will just be a massive scale, right? So hopefully
Mm-hmm.
the same type of success and selling out. And I wonder if the Gold Cup that's also in June, if that will coincide with exactly a year away from the June 12th. Or is June 12th the first match in Canada?
I believe so.
Okay, so that'll be interesting. So I'm sure that will make it very, very real. But as you're saying, like I think they should bring in Canadian players, whether they're the men's team or the women's team, Jesse
Mm-hmm.
Marsch, Casey Stoney, for sure. So much
Absolutely.
potential
And the
there.
door's open. They're absolutely more than happy to have football people come in there and actually use the facility, have meetings there, do whatever. Like it's really, really good.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's amazing because when you look at where, we were, years ago and where we are now, as much as it feels as though it's slow in our development, we really have taken some major steps here. There's been a really great positive things happening. It just happens a little slower than we would like.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's no problem to have, I think, a high bar, but we can't just sort of bask in what we've accomplished is we have to keep building, right?
Mm,
But also be pleased with what we've accomplished. And especially as you mentioned with NSL kicking off, finally have a domestic professional women's league in this country. And I think that's the piece that was missing. And we could just continue to grow as we look ahead to the World Cup. Yeah.
mhm.
So listen, just very quickly before we wrap up here, this has been a very enjoyable fireside chat. Craig Forrest, it's always good to talk to you.
Yeah.
And selfishly, I've got you all to myself. So this has been really fun for me.
That's right. We don't need those other plebs.
Yeah, fuck those guys. But so after Canada Soccer's statement yesterday, so I will read it out for anybody who didn't see it. But if you're plugged into the goings on, you probably did. But it was after our record. So it was Canada Soccer spokesperson Paulo Senra just expressed his full support for or their full support for men's national team captain Alphonso Davies as he recovers from his injury. His strength and resilient matches world-class talent, and we look forward to fully supporting him during his recovery. But this is the important bit here. Canada Soccer's coaches and experienced medical staff are true professionals and have always prioritized player safety and well-being. Anything suggesting otherwise is untrue. So, Forrest, first of all, before I get to Jesse Marsch's tweet, which doesn't really allude to either Fonzie's agent statements or Canada Soccer's statement, what is your reaction to that statement by Canada Soccer?
Well, we expected it, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
Because of what the agent said. Agents just being absolutely busy as hell. Shouldn't be involved whatsoever. I will say this: there's just absolutely zero chance that he would have been forced to play and put under pressure to play. Like I said, the medical staff, their priority is the player's well-being, not the national team, not anything else, but the player's well-being. And that's the way it has to be. And that's the way it is. And it's always has been that way. And Alphonso, if he wasn't right, you can't tell me that he wouldn't have stepped aside. It's just put more, I don't know, fuel on a fire that didn't need it, really. And we feel really bad for him, but if he'll be fine. And modern day, he's under a surgeon that's done this many times before. I feel convinced that he'll come back and he'll be 100% and he'll be just as fast as he was before.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he'll be just fine. And obviously, under the care of both Canadian soccer or national team's medical staff, which is world class, and also Bayern Munich, where he's going to be taken care of there. But that's the statement that we expected. I think the pushback and I think the strong verbiage from Canada Soccer. But Alphonso Davies himself, do you think that there is a statement that needs to come from the player himself?
Yes. I mean, I've had agents that have been guys that are just tornadoes, that just rip things up and like to stir the pot. And I've had agents that stay on the sidelines, and generally that's the case. He's got one that speaks out publicly, I'm not sure that's a good thing, and he should rein him in. Because listen, Alphonso's his boss. He's making an awful lot of money from Alphonso, but he's still his boss, and he should keep his mouth shut and know where his lane is.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. So I mentioned Jesse Marsch's tweet himself, and he just said, not digging into anything specific, but he just said, feeling proud of the team's performance this weekend and the progress we're making every day. Muscle flex or strong emoticon. I'm grateful to be part of this amazing organization. So I think that's all that he really needs to say. I don't know if Jesse Marsch needed to say anything, but some of the comments at the bottom, if you delve into them, which is never a great exercise, I don't think, on social media, but there's a lot of hatred being fired his way. But towards Jesse, yeah, and blaming him for the injury, unfortunately.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. So, and actually our Footy Prime supporters group quote tweeted Jesse Marsch's statement, or his tweet himself, and said, so when Dub says, so this is my comment from yesterday, this is not why I'm saying it, the damage is done. And I was referencing Fonzie's agent statement. Maybe that's where the damage truly is the like optics of the situation are poor, and maybe their integrity and their reputation as being able to manage world-class talent has taken a hit.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where Alphonso could, step up and say, listen, I wasn't forced to play. It was unrelated to what I had anyway. When you have a tight hamstring or something like that. So yeah, carrying an injury will increase your chances of other injuries. But like I said before, if he wasn't ready, they would have made sure they pulled him out.
Yeah, but I think a statement from him, as you said, could go a long way towards smoothing all of that over, not make it go away, but I think helping that out in some regard. But I think you made a good point too about his agent, that he needs to rein him in a little bit. And this is maybe me making an assumption. I don't know if it's an unfair one or not. You can let me know. But with Fonzie missing Champions League matches coming up for Bayern, and then also the Club World Cup this summer, that's the agent. And I think that they just recently, a few days ago, beginning of the week, released that pot of money that's going to be involved for all the clubs who are involved in the Club World Cup. And this is maybe his agent feeling aggrieved because Fonzie is going to miss out potentially on those bonuses. Wow. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, maybe he misses out on those bonuses too. I mean, Fonzie's on what, 25 million a year? I think he's going to be just fine. It's a 5-year contract. It's
right. Yeah, he's signed to 2030 now, right? At Bayern?
Yeah. And as far as the club goes, when you're injured in international duty these days, there's compensation, big pot of money that FIFA, they can tap into the club to get some compensation for the player being missing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we will leave it there, but it's been great chatting with you.
Awesome.
Forrest. Yeah. We don't need those other guys.
No.